silence all around the line. If they get the chance, they were born in bloody circumstance. To go, leave me, run like you've never run before. A voice from the underground, given room to breathe, not but be drowned. So die if you get the chance. Better men than you've been, let this dance. To go, leave me, run like you've never run before. I have seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me away. To go, leave me, run like you never did. No, believe me, run like you've never run before.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast. It is myself, John Anderson, in the chair tonight, joined, of course, for our Christmas special by a very festive-looking Craig Manson. Craig, how are you?
I'm doing great, actually. Not too bad. I've had my first beer of the festive season, so I'm quite relaxed, actually. Although I have got to work tomorrow morning, but
Would you like to show off your jumper?
it's. I don't know if you can see it. It's "Oh Scrum, all you faithful."
Great audio content here, as always. We've got a few folks joining us tonight, so it's great to see them all along. We're also joined by a festive-looking McGinty. Hello, Johnny.
Hello, Feliz Navidad, everyone.
I thought he was going to say "bah humbug" there for a second.
Do you actually?
Quiet.
Weirdly, since I've gone Spanish there, I've got my Boca Fiesta t-shirt on, home of the best alligator burritos in Florida. That's not even a lie, I've had one.
And we're also joined by Cammy Black with a Santa Claus in the background.
Yes. Ho, ho, ho. Hello. Craig, that's not your first festive beer of the festive season, because, well, what were you on at the weekend when Johnny was sending us selfies from the urinals?
I was hoping to forget that, to be honest with you, because Mr. McGinty, when
I
he says that he's
forgotten every morning.
When he says he's had an alligator burrito, I thought that was what he had at the weekend, because we ended up with kebabs on the way home and everything. It was ridiculous. But yes, Mr. McGinty very kindly took a picture of me while I was how do I put it? Well, to coin a phrase from our friends at the Blood and Mud, I was mid-slash.
Slash.
And
So was I, to be fair. I wasn't just taking weird photos of you.
Yeah, but you were splashing everywhere because you were trying to take a picture and you had no control.
And the grown-ups amongst
It got
us
out of
today
hand.
were-
Let's put it that way.
Yes.
we were all at home just going, what is going on here?
Well, well, you say that, John. I was slightly conspiring against Johnny as well from afar.
Craig said he was coming out for 1 or 2 beers and then going home on Saturday night, which turned out to not be the case.
Well, Cammy egged me on because he started me off in the right frame of mind by calling you Tory boy because you were dressed like a Tory.
That
was
is true,
dressed like a
actually.
Tory.
You were. That's a fact.
I was, yeah. I just thought I'd make a bit of an effort.
I checked his
I was going
pocket for a
Craig.
ripple, but
Oh, is that what you were doing?
aye, no comment. I was
mean,
looking.
if you had a ripple in your pocket, that would Dougie Vipond explained to us the problem with flaky base chocolate goods and trousers and pockets. So you were going to cause problems there.
I did not have a ripple in my pocket, John. I was just having a nice time.
Just happy.
Well, I tell you what, if he's mistaken it for a ripple, Johnny, then you might need to see the doctor.
I thought it was more finger of fudge, to be honest. But
Anyway,
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas! It's our Christmas special, yes, and the caliber of content is as good as always.
Can we title this "Just Enough to Give the Kids a Treat"?
2 seconds.
I mean, as someone who would still like to have a job after Christmas,
I was going to say that. Whoa.
Anyway, if you're stumbling upon us for the first time, welcome. Sometimes there's occasionally chat about rugby as well on this podcast. I did say in the preview to this that the content is loosely based on Scottish rugby, and I think that probably is quite clear here. If you want to support us further, head over to patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast. You can pay £3 a month and get exclusive content. I'm not really sure what the exclusive content will be in the next wee while. We're going to have to sit down and do a planning session and get some proper good content out there for you. But yeah, thank you to everyone that supported us this year on the Patreon. It's really, really appreciated. And we will continue to give you... Can I say continue to try and give you a good time? Is that okay? That's not too inappropriate.
You say the nicest things, Mr. Anderson.
I know.
Cammy and I were supposed to do our favourite half man, half biscuit.
We will do that at some point, Johnny. That is coming.
Yeah, we should.
Is that right? I'll pop that up there. So yeah, tonight we're going to cover a wee bit of the news because there's been a couple of. We obviously had a call off last week. We didn't manage to pod last week. So since then, Scottish Rugby has this wonderful habit of doing absolutely everything in very big bursts and giving us lots of content to talk about. Couple of things news-wise, and then we will go and do a wee bit of our festive cheer, and we've got a couple of things for you tonight to hopefully get you started with the Christmas spirit and all that. So, where will we start with the news, Craig? Which one do you want to start with? Because there's two sets of contracts that we probably should talk about.
Well, obviously, you really want to talk about Ben Vellacott re-signing for Edinburgh.
I almost tweeted Edinburgh earlier on, going, "Who even is that? I don't really care."
To be honest, that's a great bit of business, and I'm really, really happy about it. But what I was thoroughly impressed with was in the pictures for the 1872 Cup. George Horn made Ben Vellacott look very small. Or the other way around.
That's a bad sign.
Look very big, and George. Don't get me wrong, George has a fantastic stature, but a statuesque gentleman, young man. But holy crap, Ben looked rather small compared.
I'm not sure statuesque means what you think it does, Craig.
George Horn is in any way. You can take that any way in my description of George Horn because I love him.
I know you do, Craig. I know you do. That's why we have that restraining order. It's okay. So yeah, Ben Vellacott obviously has re-signed for Edinburgh. It's a good bit of business. He's done well. Do you think now with that that contract, Johnny, this is his time to start pushing, looking at Scotland honours and actually properly challenging Ali Price for, or well, let's be honest, he's not really going to challenge Ali Price, is he? Challenge for that 21 jersey. Is this his chance now?
Yeah, I mean it's got to be. That's why you sign, I would think. There's obviously Ben White playing down in the Premiership, seems to be a strong contender for the backup scrum half. Now we've got George in Glasgow and wee Benji in Edinburgh. I think if Velicott thought there was no chance of him getting a crack at the Scotland squad, he probably isn't staying with Edinburgh. So you've got to think that's his motivation. Wait and see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's probably the only reason you would stay with Edinburgh. To be fair,
I think that's being charitable. I think now he's capped by Scotland. There isn't really
anyone
that many options because everyone in the Premiership strapped for cash, apart from Bath apparently, which we'll come on to. But it's not. You get the RFU will pay subs for the number of English qualified players you've got. So you really, for your 9, Ben Vellicott's a good 9, but whilst he was English qualified, he was a worthwhile signing for a Premiership team, but he's not anymore. So Edinburgh was really, I think, the only option for Ben Vellicott. And I guess Edinburgh will probably struggle a little bit for other options as well, unless you're going to get Ben White up from London Irish, which seems unlikely.
A team with Henry Pyrgos is not struggling for options.
Sorry,
is Henry Pyrgos still playing for
quietly I'm just going to take a wee drink here.
Henry Pyrgos.
A really slow drink here.
Henry Pyrgos invented plan A, B, and C at scrum half, and he is a genius, Craig. And you just have to, he's one of these guys who, see, when he retires, you're going to look back and go, oh, I really wish we had Henry Pyrgos now. That's how good he is. You mark my words.
Sorry, I've just been sick in my mouth there.
Let's come on, Cammy, to talk about the one you hinted at. It's been rumoured, it's been silly season for quite some time, but Finn Russell is off to have a bath.
Yes.
That's not the headline. Sorry, he's joining Bath after the Rugby World Cup, which will no doubt result in international retirement as well, I would presume.
It depends. It depends very much on the current national coach. No, I mean, I think I said on Twitter, it's the best thing to happen in a bath since that lassie got into one in the 1992 Flake advert. Speaking of ripples and flakes, but it's a weird one. I mean, one, it's obviously it's a big payday for him. He's still potentially got 2 World Cups in him, depending on how things go with Scottish fly half options. I think the thing that bothers me slightly with it is, from the Premiership point of view, if I'm an England rugby fan, I don't think what English rugby needs right now is to be spending £1 million on a marquee player, given that the rumours are that pretty much every single club within the Premiership is about to go under. I mean, potentially within a season, Finn Russell could be back playing in the URC if things get that bad, because you probably have the English clubs begging for a place in the URC. So I think for Finn Russell, I think for Scotland, it's not a bad signing. It doesn't really make a whole heap of difference in terms of his availability for Scotland. Presumably, it's a bit easier for him to drive up to see family and family to see him with his new family. But I don't know. It's from a Scotland point of view, I don't think it makes much difference to him playing in France, other than he maybe gets to drive up rather than fly.
There's about 45 less games a season in the Premiership than there is in the top 14.
Well, that's true. Although I think, from what I understood, Racing were kind of managing his game time pretty well anyway. I don't think he was being made to play every game either. But yeah, he'll at Bath, he's probably going to he'll be playing less. I mean, for the Catters, you've got the Cammy Redpath connection, of course, as well. So if you've got Russell and Redpath playing together at 10 and 12 on a regular basis in the Premiership, that's a good thing for Scotland.
I mean, with the coach at Bath as well, the chances are Russell and Redpath are not going to be touching the ball much anyway. The way he's got Bath playing, so
Which is great because that's, again, it's all about managing Finn Russell's game time. He's more likely to make the next two World Cups if he doesn't have to touch the ball or
That's
go
good
near
news for
contact.
Josh Bayliss as well.
yeah, Finn Russell, the first player to make 8 World Cups as a 56-year-old, because Bath are still just not
Somebody-
passing him the ball.
Somebody, it was Naxis on Twitter, highlighted this to us, but somebody posted that Bath have
Yes.
signed the World Cup winning fly half for two consecutive World Cups. They've signed
Yeah,
Stephen
two
Donald
of the last
2011
5.
one.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Butch James before the 2007 one.
So it's good omen.
I think it's almost about time for us to start thinking about a World Cup song then, Cammy. Eh?
Oh, I'm on it, John. Don't you worry.
Good. Remember, I was keen for us to get a whole album and get Scottish Album of the Year.
But that's still on the back burner as well. Don't you worry.
Yeah, you don't actually need that much for Scottish Album of the Year.
No, we
No,
checked.
we're doing it. We've worked it out. We're working on our concept album. It's called Finn. It's going to be. It's basically.
I'm assuming that's
it's
what the last
Mogwai's-
track's called as well.
It's it's our take. It's inspired by Mogwai Zidane. Where the soundtrack
Yeah,
Zidane playing for the
nice.
entire match. The idea is to produce an instrumental album that's kind of inspired by Finn Russell.
Nice.
It's beautiful.
Just
Can you do
purely
that?
to edit for the Scottish
Wow,
Album of the Year
wow.
awards to say we're nominees.
Great. We'll finish up the Finn chat. Well, what's your take on that concept album? I mean, what's Bath aren't they aren't a world beating team, right? And Finn Russell has one major trophy in his career so far. That's all he's won. The Pro 12 with Glasgow, despite having played for Racing for 5 years. Bath's not going to add to his trophy collection. This really is about a payday, isn't it?
I think if someone walks along and offers you, a rumoured 900 to 1,000 to 1 million a year, you're going to, you look at Racing, they offered them a good shout of 750, I think it was, plus a Lamborghini. So I think they got their man, and I think Bath have obviously. I don't understand it, but I understand why he's taken it, and I understand that he's gone over the top. He's played in the URC and completed that boss level. He's now moved on to the top 14 and unfortunately fell at the last post several times. So now he's decided to come over to the Premiership. I think it'll be interesting. I think the backline with Cammy Redpath and Ollie Lawrence will be really interesting. But again, as you've commented, it depends if he actually gets the ball. And then, Van Dran's got a lot to prove because, he did take a winning Munster team and make it incredibly difficult to watch. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But yeah, to be honest, I think it's good for Finn because it's less games, there's less travelling. You'll be protected a little bit more, not as much as you would if he was playing in the Scottish team, but you'll be protected a little bit more, and it will, and hopefully that's if he's allowed to join the Scotland squad for the Six Nations, because it depends on his form, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
Do you think the reason that he turned down Racing was? I mean, it can be no coincidence. He's just had a baby. And so the attraction of having access to the wine cellar underneath the training ground at Racing, he's not going to be that offers no attraction anymore. So there's nothing in it. But you've got no reason to stay anymore. That's it.
Well, the thing is,
where the money is.
You'll have to give the Lamborghini back because you'll not fit a baby seat in the back of it.
Yeah, you can't put a car seat in a two-seater.
And Bath are sponsored by Land Rover, I think, so they'll be able to get himself a Range
Perfect.
Rover, and then he'll be all sorted. So
He did a nice SUV. He can still get his Italian badge.
All of a sudden, it all makes sense. There we go. We've just cracked it. Just like, see, this is why you pay your money to come and watch this, guys. This is why. Inspector Manson there cracks the case yet again. Now,
Also,
hang on,
he's also geographically closer to Buckfast Abbey.
That is also true.
Fair point. Yeah,
there is that, and
Essentially.
also. Pricing will steal because you'll be able to get them transported down on $1 million a year. You'll be able to get them transported down quite quickly from Baines, rather than having to wait on them being flown over.
Well, maybe his mum will bring some down in the car when she comes to pick him up after a 4-pint bender.
Well, this thing, if he's driving up to the Scotland camp, then he can't drink.
It's true.
That's true. Yeah. You can't get on the
Yeah,
plane. Well, I think he'll fly up for Bath. I wouldn't think he'll. Do you think he'll drive up?
He'll charter a private jet himself and head
Yeah,
up.
for £1 million a year.
Yeah.
I was
Hastings.
giggling a little bit at some of the nuclear takes that were being bandied about on Twitter. I have to say, it was quite.
I loved it. What do Bath think that paying Finn Russell £1 million a year is going to help them win things? Like, mate, you've obviously not watched Bath because they have a lot more problems than needing Finn Russell to help them win things. What would help Bath win things would be changing their name to Saracens and moving to London. Like, short of that, they're pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean that's a valid option, Johnny, and given the financial state of most Premiership clubs, might be a potential option at some point once another few of those clubs' demise happens, and your boy just buys up the franchise and goes, do you know what, we're going to be called this team now. So maybe that's a tactic.
Dull Bath.
I think at least Bath will pay you in money rather than having to set up several shell companies. You signed by somebody else. Or probably paying for the lads in NFTs down at Exeter.
NFTs and CBD businesses.
Finn's nail bar in northern London. That'll be interesting.
That'll be tremendous. I'm going to give that a visit when the time comes. Yeah, so let's move away from million pound contracts for incredible talent, Finn Russell, and let's talk about the detail. Finally, Craig is with us. 28 professional contracts for Scottish women. Now, a few people have asked me. I was meant to queue up Lizzo About Damn Time for you, and you were to learn the dance for it. However,
how do you know I don't already know the dance?
Well,
I don't. By the way, I'm not going to do it. I don't.
I am willing to. I've got 2 more beers lined up here. I reckon for the Patreon special, I'm willing to stand on this chair and twerk.
I just finished a 10.5% Imperial Stout, so I'm not far off that myself.
And goddamn, I've got
There's
the
a reason
ass
to
for
pay
it.
your £3.
I've got my tuba behind me. I'm not averse to getting out and it's almost a flute.
Whoa! You keep your tuba in. Get your tuba out. It's ridiculous.
Gentlemen,
This is the worst office Christmas party I've ever been to.
I wish it was the worst I'd been to, Johnny. But yeah,
Let's say that for the Patreon. Worst Christmas party you've ever been to. Get involved in the comments. We'll reveal ours in the Patreon.
Absolutely, yeah. Give some content on there. Right, 28 women have got professional contracts. About damn time. Woo! I was going to play the song, but after AC/DC tried to sue us, I decided not to.
Lizzo's cooler than AC/DC.
Exactly, totally.
The list of people trying to sue us has grown again. Fantastic.
Where's the board? It has been 0 days.
I am nothing.
Hang on, I've got it. It has been 0 days board. Hang on.
Is this
Unfortunately, this
obviously
one
works really well in it. It works wonderfully in an audio format, though, Johnny.
This was a birthday present from my wife for my class, and it says it has been 0 days since Mr. McGinty sang a Disney song. But I can always edit. I can edit it a little bit since someone tried to sue us.
Since someone tried to sue us, or since John criticised Scottish Rugby fans.
Well, there's no point. I might as well put a 0 in permanent marker for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't even need to bother. Anyway, we've got lots of contracts awarded, Craig. Lots of the kind of main players that have been in and around that squad for the last wee while. A few bigger names, not necessarily contracted, but are involved in the GB7s.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're delighted that we've finally got to this position. It's a great step forward.
Yeah, there seems to be things are moving on at a pace at this moment in time, and I'm really, really pleased. I'm over the moon, and I think my only concern is it's for a year. They've not, they've said it's 24, if I'm right in saying, and then they'll make a decision on it from then. there's not a huge, I would have rather have seen, to be picky, I'd rather have seen a longer, a 5-year investment rather than just a year at the moment. But then we've just heard that they're putting together a Celtic league.
Celtic League.
I wonder if it'll be sponsored by a cider company, and then it'll like Magners or something, and it'll the old Celtic leagues that we used to,
the good old days,
and everyone gets to play in a cotton shirt rather than the new stuff.
I'm not sure that's how it works, but okay, I love where you're going.
It kind of just because it's kind of because obviously we're catching up with professional era.
I don't think I don't think it's a woke podcast, Craig. Really, what we start and kind of dictating what women should be wearing.
I also don't think that "gets" is the word I would choose to describe having to play in a cotton shirt either. Everyone is forced to play in a cotton shirt might be more accurate.
So, what I'd like everyone to understand is that I have now aged incredibly, and everyone is just, I thought I was pretty, woke's the wrong word, but I thought I was down with the times, and I've just realised that I'm now becoming an old fart, and I'm going to have to start wearing slacks and a blazer. So
you said like The Simpsons. I thought I was with it, and then they changed what it was.
They changed what it was. So you'll see me on the SRU board pretty quickly, but no, I think I'm really excited about it. I think it's been a great year for women's sport in general, and I just I hope that this isn't just a, what's the word? This isn't something just to dip a toe in and to get people to shut up about it. I hope this is something that they're really going to develop and push on. So really excited for it, and can't wait.
Well, as Craig said, Cammy, we got the kind of news earlier on regarding the Celtic league, that they're kind of Celtic Challenge, as they're calling it. Initially, 2023, it'll have one team from each union, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. The idea is to increase that to 2 teams by 2024, two Scottish pro clubs in a women's league. This will surely stop the men's team fans moaning about having more pro clubs as well. We can.
Oh Jesus, John, that Venn diagram of men who want a Scottish pro team and men who are opposed to women's rugby being professional. That's just that's a united circle, right?
If I was a particularly nasty person, which I am, and I was in charge of those pro teams, the 2 Scottish women's pro teams would be a Caledonia Reds and a Border Reivers pro teams, and then I would just go.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Should be, Johnny? I mean it's great news, and it's great there's a competition that they can almost go straight into, because that's what it needs. And I think it's been a smart decision to fund some of the players through the GB Sevens team, although I still think that's a mad idea. Nevertheless, I still think it's, to go away and play in higher level, intense competition does expose you to a certain amount of pressure that you just can't. You wouldn't get that in a Celtic league, My only, I suppose, this would be, I'd love to see 2 women pro teams in Scotland. My worry would be about spreading things too thinly, too quickly. And I'm completely with Craig. I would hope, I wish they'd done some sort of announcement about a longer term financial commitment. And again, this comes down to comms at the SRU. I think my guess would be that they have a year, not to see whether it works out. I think it's a year to let things settle in with a view to paying them more. That's what I would certainly hope they're doing, is that let's have a year, let's review at the end of the year, and then let's pay them more. Let's sign more women on. And I think that's probably what their intention is. But the way that they've announced it makes it sound like we're going to give it a year and then let's just see where we are. We'll maybe all sack it off, which it's not the greatest of messages. So, yes, I'd love them to have, I really hope that we do have 2 pro teams, but I think the lesson from the men's game, if anything, is that it takes a long time to get to a point where you have 2 very competitive men's teams. I mean, it's taken probably the best part of 21 years to get to a point where both Glasgow and Edinburgh are competitive.
Yeah.
you've always had one or the other has been better or worse. So I don't know. I'm in two minds, and I could be persuaded either way. I guess is that I think I would like to have a very strong women's pro team that is incredibly competitive and is pushing for honours every season, because I think that'll expose the players to the best, to the best environments, most competitive environment. What I wouldn't like to see is two watered down pro teams mid to bottom of the table every year, because I don't know what that achieves. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm not against it. I just think it's the parallel with the third pro team, John, I guess, is that everyone keeps champing after a third pro team. It's like, well, the question is, do you need one? Yes, it would afford you the option of contracting more women's players, which is an absolutely fantastic thing. But from a competitiveness point of view and a resource point of view, let's make sure I think that the aim needs to be as competitive and as successful as possible.
There is another problem in that, and I might be, I'm just looking at the initial discussions about the thistles that they're going to be called, etc. The dates and that they're proposing the games to be taking place are just when the playoffs for the Premiership, the Women's Premiership in Scotland, etc., are all going to be happening at the same time. So what you're then going to have is your pool of women's players who, especially most of your futures players and most of your players that are knocking on a professional knocking on the door of a professional contract, will be playing in the Premiership teams. They'll get them to the playoffs, and then boom, they're away on Thistles duty. So it'll give lots of women who are maybe playing for those teams another a chance, while the higher level players go off to play for the Thistles. But then you've then got a team that may have got to the playoffs and then get battered because they've not got their high level players with them. So it's just as you said, Cammy, it has to be, we don't want to spread ourselves too thin at the moment, but also we need this sort of thing to happen so that we're giving those female athletes within the game something to work towards rather than just the Scotland team. And so, because obviously, we've got several teams, 6 teams in the Premiership. We would rather have more teams in there, and we would like to have more high level teams within Scottish Rugby. The problem is we're already, because the SRU have kind of opened it out and have created more, that there are more teams creating themselves each year. You're then at a point where now we're getting to a point where a lot of teams are either folding or they're getting close to folding because they're not, they don't have enough players to play games now, because the pool has the teams have expanded, but the player pool hasn't expanded as such. So it's just that we just have to be careful.
I think you're right. I think you need to get the grassroots sorted first before you talk about a second pro team. You almost want that you need to get to a point where there's a bottleneck in the Premiership of, you've got so much capacity in the Premiership that you can release that by the second pro team. I think at the minute player numbers are increasing and it's fantastic. And I think, I know Berwick have got enough now to be joining up with other teams and playing together and putting the odd team together occasionally. And I think that's the way to go, with to kind of make it more of a social game at the lower levels, and then grow it. But I think if you suddenly jump to 2 pro teams, that it doesn't solve any problems. I think you're right. I think all it does is take players out of the amateur pool, and that causes more problems. So get the path. I think get the pathway sorted before you start. It's almost like we need to walk before we can run, and that's, I think we've been honest. I think the SRU have neglected women's rugby for the best part of the last 3 decades, and you can't just flick a switch and suddenly kind of go, all right, well, we'll just match what we've done in the men's game. It just wouldn't work like that. So I think you're right, Craig. It's not. I think there needs to be the aspiration to have 2 pro teams, but at the right time.
One of the things you've said there, Cammy, as well, the whole idea of teams being successful or relative success. Let's not kid ourselves that the Scottish pro clubs have been, we've had our moments, and yeah, Glasgow have won a title, but ultimately we find Scottish Rugby has went through periods of time where the fact that Murrayfield was getting sold out every game was when Scotland started to win games. And, ultimately interest is driven. Yeah, people get interested in the sport because you're seeing it on television, you're seeing improved performances. But ultimately, that next step, once you get to a certain level, is all about having competitive sides that can win games. And you're absolutely right. Like, to focus your attention on one pro club, make that a very strong pro club, get a situation where players from that pro club are being poached over to the Premiership, over to other teams, other women's teams that are professional. That's when you start to create that almost that swell for we can then maybe justify a second team. But I don't think just doing it because that sounds like the right thing to do in some sort of like two is better than one concept doesn't seem right.
It's difficult though because you sorry.
No, but then no, it's fine.
I think what we have currently. Okay, I've been out the women's game now for 2 years, so I have I might be. I've kept in touch with it, and I'm not in the domestic leagues. And what tends to happen is you get teams who build momentum through National One, and they build momentum. Players are then attracted to them because they're winning games, so they go to get higher level rugby. And it happened with ourselves at the How. We had players being told by the SRU futures, look, you need to get to higher level clubs. So, and the club in your area is the How of Fife, so go there and play your high level rugby there. Unfortunately, I never got the opportunity to win. To coach a team to win the National League One and get promoted to the Prem, but I saw several teams that we played against go, win the league, get promoted up to the Prem, and then they're back out the Prem in the next year because they get absolutely, they're getting nilled every game, and it's a difficult situation because what tends to then happen is those players that are winning the Premiership, winning the National One League, are then being told, well, to be at a higher level rugby, you need to go and join one of these 3 Edinburgh teams or one of these 2 Glasgow teams, and so they move, and so the team that's just been promoted has been weakened because those players have left and moved on to other places to get higher level rugby, and what we don't have currently in the women's game at the moment. There is a lot of players who will play for the badge, but because there's not, because it's not as, I don't understand what it is. I don't know the answer, but they will go and play for another team quite quickly because they want to progress because the opportunities aren't there.
I know what the answer is. It's because most clubs in Scotland don't care about their women's teams. Like if you want women to play for the badge for your women's team, make it look like you actually care about your women's team. That's when you're getting papped onto the back pitches at 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon, it's hard to go, I'm going to give my all for this badge. Why would you?
When the mini team are getting the main pitch and getting the prime kickoff, and the women's team are being patched, as you say, back to the back pitches with no changing rooms. It's quite hard to get motivated.
Yeah, in my experience, we put together a season in National 2 where we ended up training not against the senior men but with senior men. We worked incredibly well. We didn't work closely with them, but we got a little bit of access, and that bonded the team together, and we pushed on and won the league and got promoted into National 1. I think Johnny's hit the nail on the head. I think women's teams. There are now 1 or 2 clubs that are taking them very, very seriously, and so because it's not just it's not just being taken seriously or getting the right changing room or getting the right pitch. It's, for example, you have the senior men kitted out in training tops and joggies and a bag and all these things with their membership, and the senior women's team are having to pay for all of that. And don't get me wrong, we always made sure we had a good set of strips, and they were brand new, and we had sponsors, etc. But there are certain teams that will do that, certain clubs that will do that, and there are certain clubs that don't. And those are all the things that you're not talking about a junior team. You're talking about senior women who are just as good as the senior men, and they're the same age, and they're the same level of rugby knowledge, etc. So they should be getting treated as one. It's a senior section rather than a senior men's or senior women.
What I think will be fascinating for me, Craig, and I'd be interested in your take on this, is with the creation of a pro women's team, is whether or not it has the same effect on the women's amateur game as the Super Six has had on the men's game. Because what's happened with a lot of teams is it's leveled the playing field in the men's game now below kind of the Prem level, in that if you have a good, teams are able to keep the players because they're not being poached. So if you've got good pathways, you've got a strong youth section, players will stay with you. I mean, you look at Berwick. Berwick have gone from the regional leagues almost straight up to National 2. And I'm not just saying that to rub it in because we got promoted ahead of you, but I will mention it. And they're doing all right. They're holding their own in National 2. They're winning some good games. They're getting beaten in others. And Berwick haven't changed anything in their approach. They've got the same coaches they had years ago in the regional leagues, got some of the same players. The only difference is they've retained their young players that have come through. Whereas before, when you used to be able to, the guys that get paid to go and play at Melrose or pay to go to, St Boswell's at one point, you lost your youth players because your best Colts would just get taken by somebody else who was higher up the league. And higher up the league is where you get spotted and where you go. Whereas I think in the women's game, you would hope that if there would be a broader look across the leagues then at players, so that you don't have to be playing in the Prem to improve your chances of being a pro Scottish rugby player, that there is a more investment in pathways. And then the teams that have invested in girls rugby should then be the more successful amateur teams, because if they can retain those players.
Yeah, I think it's it's difficult because from our side of things, when we created a team out of nothing. So we had some girls coming through the youth section, but they were once they got to S1 level, they were cut off because they weren't allowed to play with boys, and so they had nowhere to go. And we ended up putting a girls section together just to keep kids there. And unfortunately, we had sort of a constant flow of different coaches coming through, so it wasn't great for the youth setup. Where the senior setup was just sheer bloody mindedness to get it going, and we worked hard, and the girls worked incredibly hard to bring players to the team, and we worked that way. I think you're bang on. I think there needs to be a pathway through the youth system. The issue we have currently, though, is that the and again, I've been out it for 2 years, but up until the point I finished up with the Quins, there was no Cali. There was no, you would identify a couple of young players for Scottish Futures, but you wouldn't get that. You wouldn't have those regional teams that would play again. We had Glasgow. I think it was East v West, and we used to put some, and it was they put players together to play against each other, but it was all very kind of ramshackle, and I don't. We're sitting at under 18s, and every start of season we identify several players that have got to be put through to Cali, and they go through to Cali. They get intensive training by coaches that are being paid to do that job, and then they filter on, and then so we don't have that set up for the women's side of things at the moment. So it just takes a bit of.
I'm laughing because I'm just imagining someone in the SRU media team going, we've got them 28 women pro contracts, that's it, they can't be angry at this, and here's us going, pathways, they need to invest in the pathways. They've done a terrible job with the pathways.
Do you know, and that's we've never I was going to actually bring it back to that point, right? So 28 pro contracts, is a start, and that's all it was. And we've had a really busy year this year with some of the things we've kind of taken up, and obviously what things we've promoted. But you're absolutely right. It's a start, and the SRU media manager sitting there having to listen to this, because we know they do have to listen. Yeah, we can do more, and we need to do more. And this should only be the start. That year that you've given folks should be a proof of concept year that we then invest more, because this is not going away. So no, it is really funny, but we're not just moaning for the sake of moaning, Cammy. We're not.
No.
No,
And I think Cammy's right, though. I think it's just not been communicated particularly well, because if we learned anything from this year's World Cup, it's that once you start paying, you can't stop.
Correct.
Like, that's never going to fly. The teams who are at the sharp end of the World Cup are teams who have consistently invested. Like, everyone knows how much the Red Roses have invested in their entire setup to get them to where they are, to be in 2 consecutive World Cup finals, to win an entire year of games. You can't get through all of that and then go, oh no, actually we'll spend that money on something else. Like, you can't go backwards from where we are now. I don't think there's any way that we're going back. There's got to be more money, and it's got to be longer term. And I think they just should have communicated that better, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some guys probably sitting in the Scottish Sevens, or former Scottish Sevens players probably saying exactly that as well, that, the Sevens was the growth game in rugby, and was, everything about it was moving to those big markets, and all of a sudden Scotland don't have a Sevens programme necessarily anymore. So, silly decisions have been made in the past, and I'm sure if anyone's going to make silly decisions, our overlords at the SRU are they do have precedent on it. But I think you're right.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to be sitting here, can like I've picked up a fiver and dropped a tenner. I think I'm really excited about it, and I'm glad to see that the hard work from the girls who have been given their contracts have been rewarded, and I think they can only get better. Or as you saw in the World Cup, we were probably a year's worth of professionalism away from getting to a quarter final. So yeah. I think there's certain things that that we could have probably spent the money on and concentrated the players' minds on would have actually got us into a quarter final. So to get to where they are. With the funding that they've had, is a very, very good job. So I'm excited about it. I just, me, always want more.
Well, speaking of wanting more.
Well, speaking of the work that's gone into it, I think we can't move off this without mentioning that one of the contracts has gone to Ellis, by the way. Friend of the pod, who was a big help to us in the summer. Very well-deserved contract, so well done to her.
Indeed.
Yep. Very excited by that. Well done, Ellis. One thing I would just add as a kind of final thought is that we've talked a lot about the corporate health of the SRU, particularly with women's rugby, and we can't move on without mentioning Siobhan Cadigan. I think from here on in, what I would hope is that the women's rugby is given the same priority and held in the same regard as men's rugby within the SRU from here on in. And I think, understandably, just because of the way the global game's set up, they're not going to be able to put the same resources into the women's game as going to the men's game, because we'd lose money on that's the financial reality. We would lose money because you'd be defunding the men's game to fund the women's game, and the money, the main revenue stream is from the men's international game. That's just a fact. So unless every union in the world is going to get around a table and agree to start paying men and women players equally, it's just an unfortunate side effect of capitalism that's where we are. But that doesn't mean and shouldn't prevent the SRU from giving the same priority and the same attention to the women's game as it gives to the men's game, and treats them equally in terms of time, the resource of time, and the resource of coaching funding, because that's different from paying your players. Coaching resource, facilities, all of that. There's no reason why they can't achieve equality there, albeit they can't achieve equality of pay.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see they're talking about announcing the Thistle coaches fairly soon. So it'll be interesting to see where they are with that as well, and that'll show you the path, I would think. If it's and I would like to see some equality in there. There are some fantastic female coaches out there that are coaching day in day out within the current setup, and they're due their reward.
Well, lots to be excited about with lots of announcements, lots of we'll see how the girls go next year. Lots to be really kind of positive about. With that in mind, we've got 9 minutes of this free view session left. I'm not letting you take me, even though it's a Christmas special. We'll give the Christmas content to the Patreons, but you have your opportunity here. I'll come around each year. What is Santa Claus going to bring for you in a rugby sense this year? It could be a pro player, could be something you're wishing for, or you could be all cynical and ask for a lump of coal for your defence. Craig, come at you first.
For me, I'd like to see. I would like Santa to bring me a little bit more attention from the SRU where they spend their money, especially in the grassroots game. And it would be nice to see. I've kind of got my my Christmas present early with the pro contracts for the women's players, but I'd like to see the SRU spending their money a little bit more within the grassroots game to create those pathways. Put these pathways into place a little bit more compared to spending money in America on certain teams and things like that.
Don't diss the DC Old Glory, Craig.
Well, I'm saying nothing.
To be fair, when you opened up that line, I just want a wee bit more attention from the SRU. I was terrified. I was like, "What are you planning, Manson?"
Craig wants a development officer to come round his house and rub his tummy.
Well, first things first. How do you not know that's happened already, John? I know far too many development officers. No,
there's no way you wouldn't have told us about that in the pod.
Can I have two things for Santa? Can I have a second present?
I mean, have you been a good boy?
I've been a good boy.
Depends which development officer you ask.
Okay, go on then, Craig.
I'd like a 4th place for Edinburgh. That'd be nice.
Do you remember? Let's backtrack a second.
Hang on.
Do you remember?
Hang on. Hang on. We get a 4th place, then we get a chance to prove ourselves in the playoffs. So that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, and then win the whole event. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that still happening?
And thanks for on the previous episode talking to me like I'm a schoolboy. I really appreciate it. Now, Craig, do you remember?
Do you remember
what you said? You tell me now. Come on, you tell me.
I think that was more than justified at that point.
Not from a Glasgow supporter side of things. You need to watch what you're doing when you're starting to throw things around like that.
You let Munster get above us with that shocking performance.
Yeah, no, honestly, you would think.
Hang on, we let Munster get above you. Hang on, let's just talk about certain things that you guys have let happen. That's not.
Yeah, we let you get 7th place last year. Woo!
Doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
Yeah, and how does that feel, Craig? Because you've obviously not done much winning recently, so
We won last week. Don't you worry about that.
I mean,
Against a proper team, not yet. None of your
Against a
Diddy teams that you're all excited about in the Diddy Cup. There,
very good. Very good.
Was it not cast?
It was, yeah.
it's not the band, Johnny. It was.
We need to
it
work
was
on
the
your
actual rugby
definition of
team.
a proper team, Craig.
And it was such a proper team that Scott Hastings called them Breathe for most of the
Come on, you can't turn around and go, oh, because the finger on the pulse, Scott Hastings knows all about it. Come on now.
He didn't even know what team he was turning up to watch. He was like, oh,
I
yeah.
didn't know what stadium it was in.
That's fair. Cammy, what do you want from Santa?
I would just like rugby to be free of nonsense for 12 months.
Yeah.
Like off pitch nonsense. I like a bit of on pitch
Ambitious.
nonsense, but just I don't know, it just feels sometimes like you follow the wrong sport.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's nice because you come on here and I'm in a couple of nice group chats with like-minded people, and it's kind of it's nice to be in a wee echo chamber sometimes. But the rest of the time, sometimes it does grind you down a little bit. I mean, there was one of the more prominent rugby podcasters, I'd say it was a microaggression against who was it got announced as ambassador for Bristol? The name escapes me now. It was
Is it
Ellis Genge.
isn't it?
Ellis Genge got announced as Bristol. He's an ambassador for Bristol, which is a fantastic thing, connecting rugby to the city. Someone he brought up. You could see what an inspiration he could be to young men from his background in Bristol, and it gets accused of being some sort of virtue signal, which I'd say it was a microaggression, but given the number of microaggressions by this particular person, he might as well just don a Hitler moustache and start frog marching up and down the high street. It's
Don't
that
give
kind of
him ideas.
nonsense. I just shouldn't really. It's just that kind of nonsense. It would just be nice if rugby actually could live up to its hashtag values for a year, like just a year. If everyone could just do it for a year, just to give us all just a break.
Well,
And we'll get on to some of the stuff that's happened, no doubt, in the yeah.
That's
Thanks,
Harley.
Harley, yeah.
Harley rightly points out. Harley has message saying, "No off-pitch nonsense. We're in a World Cup in that time. SRU might try to sue the weather again."
I don't think we're at risk. It's France. I don't think we're at risk of suing the weather in France. There's lots of other things we could sue in France. I don't think it'll be the weather this time.
You don't think
I think
it's
if there's a typhoon in France in
we've got
the autumn, we've got bigger
problems.
problems. Yes,
So are you advocating if there is a typhoon in France, then we can justifiably say, Dodson, please try to sue the weather? Is that where we're going with this?
yeah, that's it. I think we're justified. I don't think we'd be suing the weather. I think we'd all be that film. Was it to the film 2021 or 2012 or something where all the weather
2012,
happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
John
John Cusack. We have to get John Cusack on the job to sort of.
John Cusack could sue the weather on behalf of Scottish Rugby.
John
There we go.
Cusack is in charge of saving Mark Dodson's yacht from being beached in Marseille.
Johnny, what would you like Santa Claus to bring you?
I've got the simplest one out of everyone. We really, really, really need Darcy and Xander to be fit for the Six Nations. Like, Santa, help us out here.
Do we
Because
though?
that's
Can you
Yes.
play King on in there, please? Because he's
Absolutely not.
injured at the moment.
Ridiculous, Craig. Back your box.
like we've got plenty of utility backs, Craig, but we need Darcy Graham and Xander Ferguson to be fit. Like
Right.
Xander especially. I mean, after Darcy and Duhan, Wing takes a fairly significant drop off. But after Xander, unless we're expecting WP&L to play 60 or 70 minutes every week in the Six Nations, Tighthead goes off a cliff. Like,
I think
we
should
need
be-
them for the Six Nations.
I think we should be getting the old Murray McCallum bat sign out.
I think
Agreed.
Murphy Walker will probably get the call before Murray does at this rate.
No, but it would be good to have him back in
It would,
back
yeah.
playing rugby, so that he's because
An option,
he, as I say, he was playing incredibly well. He was playing better than what's his name at Bath? What's the Scotland qualifier?
Darcy Ray.
Darcy Ray, So
Yeah, I saw
anyway.
someone shouting for Darcy Ray to get a call up because he's playing really well, and I was like, "You absolutely like a Glasgow pack mincemeated you, a second team Glasgow pack." Jamie Batty turned you inside out and then tried to do the same to me. That's how bad you were. So
we'll say nothing about that, John. Yeah,
we'll come on to that in due course.
I'm so pleased of it. Jamie Batty's going up in my estimation. I'd even have him back at Edinburgh for that.
It's
I
great.
love Jamie Batty. I thought it was brilliant.
It's great to know that it's great to know that I have such an influence that I can positively motivate my team.
Your tweet,
I just
your
like seeing you
tweet
get sat down, to be honest.
pasted, Franco Smith pasting. Look what John Anderson's been saying, boys.
It's up the wall, yeah.
Get out there and prove it to Skinchenko27 on Twitter, on the Twitters. He doesn't think you can do it.
He thinks you're
Glasgow have got serious problems if they're sticking your tweets to the
I
board.
know, right?
Evidently they are.
Speaking of people being publicly sat down on Twitter, by the way, I had to give a rare bit of kudos to the Edinburgh social media team yesterday because that was brilliant. Yeah. Someone trying to have a go at them for giving tickets to Ukrainian refugees when they should be giving it to Scottish homeless people. And they just put up a big list of what the community engagement team does, and they were like, "But if you want to be angry about something, then knock yourself out." And a wee fishing hook emoji, just like top work.
It was a pretty vicious takedown, wasn't it? It was nicely done. So for me, Santa Claus is going to bring. Actually, just to finish on your point, Johnny, regarding Xander and Darcy, I know what you're saying. Like, for a Six Nations to be successful, I think we need them there. But if we remember how Xander Fagerson came into the team as a child, when WP Nell got injured, this is an opportunity for those guys. Our propping stock in Scotland is never deep, but actually we are at a bit of a critical level where we're relying on Grampanell to, do the job. So I think it's a good opportunity for Murphy Walker, Whisper at Murray McCallum if he was to get a contract and get playing somewhere. It's a good opportunity for these props to actually get a bit of game time in a Scotland shirt. So I'm less concerned about that. Darcy's a huge miss, but ultimately we need to find a way to kind of mitigate that. And actually, it's a wee bit of time off before the World Cup, so I'm kind of happy. Actually,
very, very, very quickly, because obviously we're over the hour. Speaking of time off before the World Cup, we need to mention that Hamish Watson has been stood down and he's got to see a neurotrauma specialist.
Yes, that's yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been coming though, hasn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's the thing, and he's been stood down. They were saying he was struggling afterwards, but wasn't necessarily. It's not necessarily that he's showing massive symptoms or in that sense, but it's the number of concussions and the number of incidents we've had now.
He's Rocky at the start of Rocky 5, and that's the worry.
Yeah.
And also, and to take a particularly selfish view of it, it's not like we're sitting here going, "Oh, if we didn't have Mish, what we're going to do?" We have players there that will continue on and play, maybe not the same brand as rugby as he would, but there's players there that will take up the slack, and he can get the help and the treatment he needs to come hopefully back and play some more. But you just can't be safer. You can't be doing anything less. You can't be.
It's fine because Tom Gordon will be back in January, so Six Nations is saved.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, please.
Six Nations is saved. Captain Tom will be back and we'll be fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
Craig's a way to open his desk drawer to his wee picture of Luke Crosby and just go,
yeah, I know the Luke Crosby love is like, I almost want to start fighting that.
The thing is though, I don't understand.
He's been great.
Luke Crosby love. How dare he? He's been fantastic.
He's been really good.
He's
really good.
I love a back row with a bit of niggle. It's great, and he's just quietly just gets on with it and rattles people, and I love it to bits.
So my wish from Santa Claus is that the Hugh Naissance is actually a thing, and I want it to be everything that it has potential to be the most beautiful comeback story ever. Oh, can you imagine Hugh Jones in the 13 jersey in a World Cup final, tearing it in 4 tries against England, Finn Russell throwing it under his legs to score tries for him. Oh, just yes, please. Yes, please.
I was totally on board with you for a second there until you said World Cup final, and then it just went off.
No, I mean,
Did you not hear us?
yeah.
Now that Finn signed for Bath, it's as good as guaranteed.
This is the problem, Craig. Craig's wish to be 4th in a league from Santa. Make any wish you want in the world. I wish to be 4th in the league. That's like a kid asking for a knockoff toy for the Christmas present. Say, what do you want for Christmas? Do you want a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle? Nah, I just want the karate chopping ninja newts instead.
Do you want a pair?
The back shelves of B&M.
Do you want a pair of Reeboks? No, I want a pair of non-brand because obviously
Listen,
that's where
there's
I'm
nothing
at.
wrong- Listen, there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's what I got for my Christmas. It's people like you that made me sad.
Do you know what? Adidas tracksuit, son. No, I'll have 4 stripes, Dad, and I'll be happy.
Ah, yeah, let's go to 4 stripe. Yeah, that's 1 more stripe than 3.
Popper's only half the way up. It's fine for me.
We'll get onto the topic of poppers, I'm sure, at some point because
Oh,
because
there's a promise for the Patreons.
I may have made
I'm staying on the beer, John. I don't know about you.
I may have made a purchase of some retro
Don't dig any
trackers.
This gets worse.
This is definitely Patreon content.
Anyway, yeah, we'll see how that goes on Patreon. Gabby's
Ian's offline waiting to find out where you got it from.
Anyway, with that, we will head off from the free view and head over to Patreon so that we can get a wee bit more loose-lipped about my choice of backlit bombs.
Yes, John, let's get a bit looser and chat about poppers.
Right, okay. We're done. Okay. Yeah, we'll see you all in a minute, guys. It's good night from me. Good night from Craig, Cammy, and Johnny. Good night.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Oh no.